Hi, welcome to this part of my review featuring Fabula Ultima TTJRPG. If you haven't seen the other parts of my review, featuring this tabletop role-playing game that attempts to bring the Japanese video game RPG experience to your table, please check out the playlist in the description below. This time we're going to talk about resting and damage. The heroic life can take a heavy toll on player characters. They often need to rest and recover their energy. Depending on the location, characters have access to different options for resting. When it comes to resting in the wilderness, when far away from the safety of cities and villages, traveling on the road or exploring a ruin, characters must have access to one of the following in order to rest. First, a magic tent, created by spending 4 inventory points. We will talk about these points in a future part of the review. 1 tent is enough for the entire group. I think this is perfect. It reminds me of the old Final Fantasy games. Then, hospitality from someone friendly, usually in exchange for help or money. A safe location where they run no risk of being attacked. Perhaps a consecrated temple, a secret room, the inside of an armored transport, or an area protected by a magic circle. So any of these 3 conditions will suffice in order for you to rest in the wilderness. When it comes to resting inside settlements, while in a village, town, or city, characters must have access to one of the following in order to rest. A room inside an inn, which will cost money of course, or hospitality from someone friendly, usually in exchange for help or money. Concerning the effects of resting, when a player character rests, they enjoy the following benefits. They recover all their hit points and mind points. They recover from all status effects. Generally, resting requires 4 to 6 hours of inactivity. Now, while the rules for rests are very generous, spending too much time wrapped in the warm blankets of an inn will allow whatever danger is approaching to make the first move undisturbed. Inactivity should never be without consequence. The Game Master may use clocks to keep the players on their toes and foreshadow incoming threats, filling a section at the end of each rest. I think this is a great rule or consideration. Now, concerning bonds and resting scenes, when the heroes rest, there is a chance for calmer, more intimate role-playing. This sounds a bit weird. Intimate role-playing. I think saying it's a time for character development is much better. Okay, so this is known as a resting scene. During this type of scene, players can spend some time role-playing conversations and describing what their characters do, while sitting near the campfire or relaxing around the town. At the end of a resting scene, each player character may do one of the following. Create a new bond towards someone or something. Add a new emotion to an existing bond. Erase an emotion from an existing bond and replace it with a different one. When you add new bonds or change their emotions, describe how and why your character's view of others has shifted. This is not good. As you are role-playing rather, having conversations describing the actions of your character, what your character is saying, you don't need to clarify, oh, my character is thinking that he or she doesn't like this or that. That is unnecessary. It is not elegant and it is potentially cringy. Just have that conversation, that interaction through roleplay, and everyone at the table is going to understand why your bonds have changed or shifted or whatever. Now, when it comes to non-player character recovery, these rules only apply to player characters. The Game Master always has full control over non-player character recovery times. In general, whenever a non-player character appears on a scene, they are assumed to be at their full hit points and mind points, and with no status effects. I think you could also handle it with clocks. Maybe you have injured a powerful monster or perhaps inflicted damage upon some vehicle or construct type of enemy, and the enemy escapes, the enemy is running away, and you are chasing after the enemy. You want to see if you can finish off the enemy before he or she or it recovers. You could handle this with a clock. Now let's talk about damage. In Fabula Ultima, damage generally falls into one of the following types: physical, air, bolt, dark, earth, fire, ice, light, and poison. So this is pretty typical for Japanese role-playing games. You have these affinities. Some creatures have a particular affinity towards certain types of damage, often due to their species. For instance, undead creatures are vulnerable to light damage. If a creature is vulnerable towards a damage type, they will lose twice the normal amount of hit points. If a creature resists a damage type, they will only lose half the normal amount of hit points. If a creature is immune to a damage type, they will lose no hit points. If a creature absorbs a damage type, they will lose no hit points and will instead recover an amount of hit points equal to the damage they suffered. Some game effects may cause you to gain a variety of affinities. If a character is both vulnerable and resistant to a specific type of damage, they are treated as having no affinity towards it. Immunity, on the other hand, always supersedes both resistance and vulnerability. Finally, absorption supersedes all other affinities. Some game effects let you deal extra damage. These effects do not apply to attacks or spells that deal no damage, only to those which already deal damage. There are a variety of game effects that change the type of damage dealt by a spell or a weapon. When this happens, the most recent effect overrides any previous changes, and when such an effect ends, damage will return to its previous type. Damage is generally dealt by weapons, spells, or special abilities, but there can be other situations in which characters might be harmed, such as falling from a bridge or being buried under a pile of debris. The Game Master should use a table included in this section to determine the amount of damage suffered in similar occasions. The damage type will vary depending on the circumstances, of course. Sources of damage such as traps and hazards cannot kill a player character unless they choose to sacrifice themselves. This should be portrayed as a sudden stroke of luck or as a consequence of the character's heroic resolve. It really bothers me that there are so many safety nets trying to keep you safe from dying. Remember when you played your favorite Japanese role-playing game that is a video game, and when you were about to die, the game made a pause, and they asked you, "Do you want your character to die? Yes or no?" You see how ridiculous that is? And this concludes this part of the review. In the next part we are going to talk about status effects and Fabula points. So in general, I like the way that damage is handled, the elemental affinities, the way that there is absorption, immunity. Do you remember when you were fighting that very dangerous boss in your favorite video game RPG, JRPG, and you used the incorrect spell and suddenly you healed all of the damage that you had dealt to the enemy? So it's perfect to represent that. I also think that the way resting is handled works great with the video gamey flavor of this RPG. So it makes sense that when you rest a single night, all of the damage is recovered, all of your status effects, because you are playing as larger-than-life characters. Thank you for watching this part of the review, and thank you for your likes and your comments. If you have any questions or comments, please let me know. And thank you so much to those of you that are going the extra mile to support the channel. If anyone else wishes to further support the channel, the information on how to do that will be in the description below. Once again, thank you, and see you later.